The morning Ethan Hale found a runaway bride in his truck was the same morning. He thought nothing in his life would ever surprise him again. For years, he had convinced himself that heart-stopping moments were for movies and dreams, not for a single father living in a small American town, painting late at night to numb old wounds. But when that trembling woman in a wedding gown stumbled out of the tree and collapsed near his front tire, something ancient inside him woke up. It wasn't love. Not yet. It was something deeper, stranger. A feeling that his life had been waiting, holding its breath, for her arrival. Her face, pale beneath smeared makeup, looked painfully familiar, but he couldn't place it. Not until much later, when the truth slammed into him like a forgotten memory demanding to be remembered. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and destiny crossing paths in unexpected ways, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Ethan had been driving along the empty country road after dropping his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, at school. The fog was still low, the morning dew clinging to the grass, and the world felt strangely quiet, too quiet. That was when he saw her. A flash of white, like a torn flag waving desperately for help. He braked hard, dust lifting around him as he jumped out. The woman was barefoot, her veil ripped, her fingers clutching the ground as if she had crawled far more than she had run. Her breaths came in sharp bursts, her chest tightening, as though every inhale was a battle she wasn't sure she could win. Ethan looked around, half expecting someone to chase after her, but the road behind him was empty, silent, and stretching endlessly into the morning fog. The woman appeared to be in her late 20s, maybe 30, delicate but strong, like someone who had carried her pain for years and hid it well. Ethan lifted her into the passenger seat of his truck, noticing the bruises across her wrist, bruises shaped like fingers, fresh and angry. He didn't ask questions, he just drove. The woman kept glancing behind them, panicked, trembling every time a car passed on the opposite side of the road. Finally, when they reached Ethan's small house on the edge of Brentwood, she collapsed onto the couch, breathing in the safety like it was oxygen she had been starving for. Her name was Grace Whitmore, and she had run from a wedding that wasn't built on love. She had escaped a groom she didn't choose, a man whose wealth and influence wrapped her like a cage. The wedding was meant to unite two powerful families, and her refusal had consequences she didn't dare imagine. She had tried to run weeks ago, but the pressure had forced her back each time. Today, she had simply broken. She told Ethan she didn't want to ruin his life by being here, but she also didn't know where else to go. Ethan didn't know why he felt responsible for her safety. Maybe because he had once been in a situation where he was helpless too, watching the love of his life slowly slip away to illness, while he could do nothing but hold her hand. Losing his wife 3 years ago had left him hollow, raising Lily alone, while trying to piece himself back together one brushstroke at a time. He painted in the evenings, often losing himself in shapes and shadows, trying to create faces that made the emptiness inside him feel less dark. For months now, he had been painting a woman whose face he couldn't quite finish. She came to him in dreams, hugging the light and the sorrow in equal measure. When he looked at Grace, he felt a strange pull, a whisper from somewhere deep inside, "You've seen her before," but he pushed the thought away. Real life wasn't mystical. He had responsibilities, a little girl to raise, bills to pay, and a stranger in his living room wearing a wedding dress torn at the hem. For the next few days, Grace stayed in Ethan's guest room, sleeping more than she spoke, eating quietly, her eyes always drifting toward the window as though the world outside might swallow her whole if she stepped out. Lily, with the innocence only a child carries, adored her instantly. She would sneak into Grace's room with drawings, flowers picked from the backyard, or just to sit beside her because she looked lonely. Grace softened around Lily, her heart reshaping itself with every laugh the little girl gifted her. Ethan watched them sometimes from the doorway, the worn sadness in Grace's eyes slowly being replaced by something gentler, something like hope. Still, Ethan felt the growing weight of danger. Grace's disappearance would not go unnoticed. Powerful people didn't simply lose brides without consequences. When news broke in town that the Whitmore wedding had been interrupted, whispers spread like wildfire. Some said she had cold feet. Others said she had eloped. But Ethan knew better. He knew the truth lived in the bruises she hid beneath long sleeves, and in the way she shook whenever she heard a loud noise. Grace began opening up slowly, layer by fragile layer. She told Ethan about the life she was born into, expectations, obligation, and a family more concerned with reputation than happiness. She had been taught to obey, not to feel. The man she was supposed to marry controlled everything. Her schedule, her friends, even her future. The final straw was when he told her that once they married, she would not be allowed to continue her work, art restoration, something she had poured her soul into. Her freedom would be gone forever, and so she ran, hoping she could disappear long enough for them to give up. She hadn't expected to survive the woods. She hadn't expected anyone to help her. As the days turned into a week, Grace found herself drawn to Ethan's quiet strength. He wasn't a man who boasted or tried to impress her. He was gentle with Lily, patient with life, and steady in the way she desperately needed. Every evening, while Lily slept curled up with her stuffed rabbit, Ethan would go to the small room where he painted. One night, unable to sleep, Grace walked toward the faint glow spilling from under the door. She stepped inside and froze. On the easel stood the unfinished painting, a portrait Ethan had been struggling with for months, and it was her. Her face, her eyes, her gentle but wounded expression. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. It wasn't perfect. He hadn't yet completed the features, but it was undeniably her. She felt the air leave her lungs. Ethan turned, startled, as if he'd been caught revealing something deeply personal. He told her he didn't know why he had painted her. He had dreamed of the face for months, long before meeting her. He had tried painting other things, but always ended up returning to this woman. Maybe the universe was trying to tell me something, he admitted quietly. Grace felt tears rise, not from fear, but from a sense of being seen, truly seen, for the first time. But they didn't have time to understand what it meant. The very next morning, a black car passed slowly in front of Ethan's house. Grace saw it through the blinds and felt her stomach twist. The past had finally found her. Panic hit her body like electricity, but Ethan placed his hand on her shoulder, grounding her. He told her she wasn't alone anymore, that he wouldn't let anyone hurt her. But he was one man, and her former groom was backed by wealth, power, and people trained to make problems disappear. Ethan contacted a lawyer, an old friend of his late wife. Together, they worked to help Grace file a restraining order and a statement about the abuse she had endured. It wasn't easy. Grace was terrified. The legal battle that followed was not just about documents or hearing. It was about a woman reclaiming the life she had been denied. Ethan stood beside her at every meeting, every call, every moment when her hands shook and her voice trembled. Slowly, painfully, she found strength she never knew she had. But while they fought the darkness behind her, something new began quietly growing between them. It wasn't rushed or forced or expected. It was soft, almost healing. Grace found comfort in Ethan's presence, and Ethan found warmth in hers. Lily became the bridge between them, tugging Grace's hand, asking her to stay for bedtime stories, insisting she join their weekend picnics. Grace didn't realize she was becoming part of their little family until one morning. Lily slipped her tiny hand into hers and said she wished Grace could stay forever. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and painted the living room gold, Ethan and Grace sat together watching Lily chase fireflies in the yard. Grace felt a deep ache inside her, a longing not rooted in fear, but in hope. She told Ethan she wanted to live, not just survive. She wanted to find her own path, pursue her art again, and build a future she chose for herself. Ethan told her she could, that she already was. It took months, long months filled with paperwork, confrontation, hearing, and emotional wounds reopening. But Grace finally won her freedom. The engagement contract was dissolved. The families came to an agreement to avoid scandal, and the man who once controlled her life was ordered to stay away permanently. Grace cried for hours that night. Not because she feared the future, but because she could finally breathe again. Ethan held her, not as a savior, not as a hero, but as someone who had learned to love again without realizing when it started. If this story is touching your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps these emotional stories reach more people. As the seasons changed, so did their lives. Grace moved into a small art studio downtown, but she still spent most evenings at Ethan's house. She restored old paintings during the day and helped Lily with her homework at night. Ethan completed the portrait, the painting he had begun months before she appeared in his life. But now, the woman he painted wasn't broken. She wasn't running. She wasn't lost. He painted her the way he saw her now, strong, brave, and filled with light. One night, Grace walked into the living room and found Ethan asleep on the couch, Lily cuddled on his chest, the TV glowing softly in the dark. She felt tears prick her eyes. After a lifetime of being told what love was supposed to look like, she had finally found it. Quiet, steady, real. Their love didn't begin with fireworks. It began with safety, healing, trust, and quiet moments that built something stronger than either of them expected. Months later, Ethan surprised her by hanging the finished painting in the hallway, the first thing anyone saw when they entered the house. Grace stood before it, tears running down her cheeks, realizing the truth she had been afraid to say out loud. She wasn't running anymore. She was home. Before we end, please comment below. Do you believe destiny brings the right people into our lives at the right time? I'm reading every comment. In the end, love didn't rescue Grace. She rescued herself. But love gave her something she never thought she deserved, a second chance at life, at family, at happiness. And Ethan, The single dad who once painted to fill the emptiness, now painted to celebrate the future they were building together. Love, safety, freedom. Sometimes they arrive in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes they start with a runaway bride on a lonely road, a single dad with a kind heart, and a painting that waited for its story to begin. And sometimes destiny really does lead us exactly where we need to be. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more emotional stories like this. Your support means everything.